So I wanted to do a second video, a simple one, showing kind of start to finish an example of how I use Photoshop. I just created a video thumbnail, just a background with some text on it, just like this, for YouTube. I'm going to create one of these now for this second video called Demo, and this is how you do it. So first thing I'm going to do is, you see that in this I have the colors of the Photoshop logo. It's the same color scheme. So you look up here and you can see the Photoshop logo. It's got this dark blue and this light blue. And then I wanted to kind of follow that same theme since this is a series about Photoshop. So to do that, I need to take a screenshot of this real quick. You can take a screenshot on the Mac. If you hit Command-Shift-3, it'll do an entire screenshot like this. If you want just a small portion, you can hit Command-Shift-4, and then it brings up these crosshairs, which you can click and drag and select what you want to take a screenshot of. So in this case, it just took a screenshot of the Photoshop logo. I have mine set up to put these things on my desktop. So here is the full screenshot of what I did the first time, Command-Shift-3. Just gonna delete that. And then when I hit Command-Shift-4 and selected the Photoshop logo, it just pulled that. That's all I really care about. Okay, let me go back to Photoshop. So I'm going to create a new file from scratch. According to YouTube, if you create a video thumbnail, it has to be 1280 pixels wide by 720 pixels tall. Because this is going to be on the internet, 72 pixels per inch is the standard. And then I click create. So here's my artboard, and over here on the right on the bottom, this says layers. This is essentially the way that Photoshop is laid out. It's in layers. So like for example, here is the base layer. If I was to select the brush tool here and use the right bracket, I can increase this and then start painting. Okay. Now I want to show you what these layers are. So if I click this again, now it creates another layer on top of this one. And you can think of like whatever I put here lays on top of this one. So now if I switch from this black color to, let's say, this white color, let me just switch these. Now the white's on top, so the white's active. I'm going to use the left bracket key. Shrink this. So now if I start just writing, now it paints on top of that black layer. And it's in its own layer, so it doesn't really affect what's under it. If I hide the layer that I'm currently in, you can see the back is still all just black. I'm not getting rid of any of the black. I'm just covering it with something else. And you can do this endless number of times. You can get another color. I'm going to double click right here in the swatch. Pick red, click OK, and you can just continue this whole theme, just building layers. And that's essentially what we call a composite. So this is like a simplistic example of how scrapbooking will work. You're going to have multiple layers, and whichever layer is on top is the one that's going to show the most. So if I put this second layer on top, then you can see now it's on top of the red. If I was to switch it again, now the red is on top of the white. If I put the black layer on top, then you won't see anything because it covers everything. Does that make sense? You can hide individual layers by clicking this little eye. And again, you can drag them around. So that is essentially how you create layers. You use this little create layer button. If you hover over any of these buttons, they tell you what they do. Create a new group, create a new fill or adjustment layer. So this little plus sign is to create a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and delete these extra layers. Delete, delete. I don't need any extra layers. So remember, for this This thumbnail, I want it to be the Photoshop colors. So how do I figure out what those are? That's why I took the screenshot. So I'm going to pull in that screenshot I took so I can pull the colors from it. So I'm going to go File and Place Embedded. You do this to put any file inside of your current artboard. I'm on my desktop where I saved my screenshot, and I'm just going to open it so it's a little bigger and easier to see. You can see that here's my layer 1, the black layer, and it's creating this as a new object on top. Again, if this was below, you wouldn't see it because the black is covering it, but because this is on top, it's sitting on top of the black layer. If I go from this brush tool to my move tool, I can now move it around. Like I said, the black layer is still just behind it, and there you go. Okay, so next tool. So the move tool allows you to move things. You can grab and drag. I like these little video previews that Photoshop shows you when you hover over the tool. This tool right here is called the eyedropper. When you click, it pulls the color that is underneath of it. So if I click this and I clicked this background color, you're going to see my red swatch turn dark blue. You can also work with two different swatches. So if I click this little arrow, it will switch them, and now the black one is on top. I can use my eyedropper and select the light blue. So now I have my light blue and my dark blue in my color swatches. That's all I needed this Photoshop thing for, so I'm going to click the layer with the Photoshop logo, and I'm just going to delete it. And so now I want to make the entire background this dark blue. You can use the paintbrush if you really wanted to. You can just sit here and paint. To make it bigger, you would use the right bracket key. To make it smaller, you use the left bracket key. You can come in and just paint this whole thing blue if you wanted to. That's one way to do it. If you need to undo something, you hit Cmd Z. You can just keep doing that to back up. Another way to do this is if you come down right here, there's another tool called the paint bucket. It might be hidden in a menu. Sometimes in one area there's multiple tools. I think this tool is shown by default. It's the gradient tool. If you see this little white arrow in the bottom of the tool right here, that means that there's multiple tools in this area. So you right click on it, or you just click and hold, and then it will show you options for other tools in this little area. I'm going to use the paint bucket tool. Just click, and it takes and fills in whatever color I'm using, which in this case is the dark blue. So I got the background done. Now I want to create a new layer and put some text on top. It will automatically create a layer when I use the text tool. So that's right here where the T is. You just click and type. I'm just going to leave the default. It says it's going to use the font Myriad Pro. This is if you wanted like bold, italics, whatever. I'm just going to leave regular. I am going to use 200 size font. You can pick whatever font you want. And there's other options too. Right here you can see the color. And all I'm going to do is just click the color that I had picked up from the Photoshop logo. So now my text is going to be blue. I'm just going to click somewhere, type in lesson 02, I'm going to hit enter, type in demo. So right now you can see everything is aligned left. I'm going to select it. I'm going to click centered. It doesn't center it on the artboard, but it centers each of the lines between themselves. So then I click on this move tool and I can move it where I want it. In this case, I'm going to try to center it, and we're done. So right now I can save this if I wanted to. I'm going to click save. on my computer. And we can call this video thumbnail. It's going to save on my desktop. And this is the format. So remember, there's different formats you can pick. Now, because this file has layers, you can see there's like layer 1 and then the layer with the text. In order to preserve these layers so that you can edit them individually in the future, you only have these options to pick from. You can use a TIFF file, you can use a Photoshop file. Let's stick with Photoshop. That's the easy one. So I click save, and now if I go to my desktop, I have a video thumbnail Photoshop file. And if I was to click that, it would open up Photoshop and pull open this file with both of these layers. And again, I can go in at any time and edit them. So if I wanted to change this to lesson 3 and change it to whatever, I can do that. If I want to undo, I hit Cmd Z. Well, and there we go. Now, let's say I wanted to save this as a JPEG, because I can't upload a Photoshop file to YouTube. I can't have layers to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Layer, Flatten Image. It basically bakes it all together. So now it's not individualized anymore. I can't really change it without destructive editing. And now when I go to save, instead of saving over the file I just made, I'm going to click Save As to create a new file. Save it on my computer. And this time there's a lot more options. So it's going to be video thumbnail. Maybe I will be more specific and say lesson 02.psd. I'm going to actually get rid of .psd because I don't want a Photoshop file. I want to do a JPEG file. So now, because there's only one layer instead of multiple layers, you can see there's a lot more options to pick from. The one that we're interested in is JPEG. And then I just click Save. Anytime you create a JPEG picture, JPEGs work based on compression. That's why they're so popular. It's the most popular photo file because it saves a lot of memory. This, as long as you have this box checked, will show you what the file will look like based on how much compression you're going to do. If you want a low quality image, you can save a lot of memory, and look, it's only going to be 38 kilobytes. You can also move this all the way up the other way, and it'll be a little larger. To see this in action, you have to zoom in. So I'm going to hit Command plus and zoom in so that you can see what I'm doing. If I choose the smallest, lowest quality file, it will really distort the pixels in order to save memory, 38 kilobytes. As I slowly increase the quality, it's going to take more memory to do that, but the picture is going to look better. The more information you save, the better the picture is going to look. And there won't be these like fragments and different artifacts in the back. So 96, 131, it's looking pretty good. There's some minor things there that you can kind of see. Just some like little specklings in the background. JPEGs are great for like actual photos where these things in the background can't be seen as easily, but in text, when you're using solid colors, JPEGs usually are not the best. But anyway, all that's just to show you. So if I want to zoom back out, fit to screen, I'm going to hit Command 0. That's what it looks like. It's a single layer, and I saved it as lesson02.jpg. So anyway, just wanted to share. That's a beginning to end example of how to use Photoshop. We covered a lot of different things in this one. Don't be intimidated. We're going to cover all these things multiple times, and eventually you'll kind of get a flow for how this all works. But that was kind of an overview. So, okay, until next time.